All right, it is the very first Monday of the month of May. This is 4th of May 2026. Karibu sana to TV47 Breakfast. My name is Fred Indimuli. I'm here to wake you up best way we know how. And we ask you, how hot is the coffee where you are? Coming from a very busy weekend, ilikuwa 3-day weekend, najua wengi wenyu sasa bado kuna hangover, unarudi kazi leo uspende. Anyway, it was a busy but very interesting weekend for very many people. Coming from Labor Day, the pronouncements made there by the president, 12% general wage increase. General, not minimum. Inamaanisha hata wewe mali uko sahi, unafaa uende uone HR. 12% increase. Kama una bahati, that is. Also happening this past weekend, Manu wakafanya ile kitu. Sasa director wetu leo ambaye anaitwa Manu kama Manu. Ama ni Manu, sababu ya Manu. Hashikiki. Sasa ile kazi inaendelea hapa, ile kelele nasikia kwa kichwa haikwishi. Hiyo ni shida tupu. Then the president, in only the second week, President William Ruto returned to Murang'a. Akona interest gani kule Murang'a? Meanwhile, the governor there said he's not going to go UDA come 2027. Now, these are just some of the highlights we'll be having today on the morning cafe of on the TV47 breakfast. Hata mimi niko na hangover ya weekend. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo nimesema ati morning cafe. This is TV47 breakfast. Meanwhile, we have our reporter, Muthoni Brenda, on the streets of Nairobi. We'll be linking up with her momentarily, so do stand by for that. You can also interact with us through all our social media pages, TV47 Breakfast on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. We were also streaming live. If you're on X, it is TV47 Digital. And of course, remember the hashtag to use is TV47 Breakfast, na hashtag Story ni yetu. On the international front, I can see that May 4th is actually the International Firefighters Day. So if you know a firefighter somewhere, send them their best wishes. International Firefighters Day. All right. So that is what we'll be talking about today. Let's take a look at the quote of the day.
The most profound joys are often hidden in simplicity. Only those with depth, patience, and awareness can truly recognize their quiet, extraordinary brilliance.
All right, quite profound. Simplicity is key in everything we do. All right, magazeti yako hapa. Let's come back and take a look at the local dailies. All right, and later on the show, even as we take a look at the papers, we'll be having NC Fwamba, who's a political analyst for State of the Nation, alongside Dr. Daniel Olekanchori and Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo. That coming you at 6:30 to help us discuss the big headlines. And today, one of the biggest headlines is this one. On the front page of the Standard, it will form the basis of our biggest discussion on whether or not retired President Uhuru Kenyatta should actually be involved in active politics. So on the Standard, this is a headline, Ruto's Bogeyman. Wanasema the scapegoat. With Mount Kenya voting bloc seemingly defiant towards President Ruto's 2027 re-election, Ruto's appointment have turned their anger and frustration on retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. In what is becoming the norm, the Ruto administration has made Uhuru its punching bag whenever it's under pressure from Kenyans to deliver on their promises in an attempt to deflect attention. Now, this is according to the Standard. I'm just reading straight from the front page. And during this weekend, the Kenya Kwanza wingmen went all out with a barrage of criticism and threats on Uhuru, a clear indication of a rattled and unsettled team coming to terms with the fact that the vote-rich region is slipping away right before their eyes. If you look at other dailies, it talks about the president's own assessment of his chances in Mount Kenya region. Na akasema hiyo anaachia Mungu sababu anaelewa kuna shida hapa na pale. And probably that's the reason why he was in Murang'a yesterday. Now the front page of the Standard has only this one story, Ruto's Bogeyman. I wish they would have asked it as a question, not as a statement. But anyway, this, according to them, is the analysis. They have a quote here of a political analyst, Dismas Mokua. Anasema the praise and attack strategy is meant to rattle former President Uhuru Kenyatta so that he moves to the knowns matrix. This state will enable presidential candidates to recalibrate their 2027 strategies. Now, the retired president also got a chance to answer his critics during one of the events. I think it was in Narok, Kajiado this past weekend. He made a phone call. Unajua siku hizi vile watu wamezoea, alafu ukiongea unasema nimepigia ule jamaa, wacha nimweke kwa speaker. Yeah, na akafungua roho hivyo hivyo. So that's the front page of the Standard. Let's take a look at other headlines kule ndani. Conservationists raise alarm of a plan to relocate animal orphanage. Hiyo ilikuwa iende page 2, lakini pale page 3, stars shine at Kalasha Awards amid calls for industry reform. President William Ruto was there. He even took part in a skit. He awarded one of our very own, Shiksha Arora. She won a very special award. And I think we should just honor Shiksha as well for doing what she did. Shiksha Arora won the Positive Impact Content Creator of the Year Award at the 14th Kalasha International Film and TV Awards 2026. The initial award was 200,000 shillings for that, but President William Ruto was generous enough to add 300,000 shillings extra, making it 500,000 shillings. Wachana na pesa kwanza. Shiksha Arora, congratulations on that win. Yes, na ujamaa wa Manu. Amani wa Manu angefanya ile kitu tungekuwa poa sana, lakini sawa, tushakuzoea. Anyway, from that, another special report on the Standard, Central Kenya reeling as families bury sons lost to alcohol. This is a problem that cuts across the country, but in Central Kenya it is quite a big problem. So they've done a special report on pages 4 and 5. The other headline under this is billions lost yearly through illicit alcohol industry, Parliament told. Maswala ya pombe haramu. Hey, probe uncovering hidden charges. Now, Minister for Education, Ogamba, sent a circular, sent actually a letter to the TSC, asking the TSC to suspend one of the principals of one of the biggest schools in Kenya because amefanya nini? Ame more than double school fees from 53,000 shillings to 120,000. Mutalipa tu. So these are some of the stories here, and I'm looking for other big stories. Standard, I will not defend my seat on UDA ticket, Kangata says. Meanwhile, ODM power revives Raila Orengo era. ODM are holding a retreat in Mombasa as we speak. Lakini najua wajamka sahi, wataamka baadaye. So those are the stories on the back page. Gor Mahia moved 9 points clear in race for league title. Wanajaribu ni kama timu ingine kule England wako 6 points clear on the top of the table. Hata Man U wafanye nini na Liverpool hawafikia hapo. But Manchester City will be playing Everton tonight. Matter Sports given prominence on the back page of the Standard. Gazeti la Standard. Tuangazie gazeti la Daily Nation now. On the Daily Nation, housing jobs row. That's a big headline there. You remember last week that economic survey report by the Kenya Bureau of Statistics that said that the affordable housing program had actually provided more than 832,000 jobs in Kenya. So it would appear this headline is asking questions about that. It says the numbers are not adding up. A controversy has erupted over the number of jobs created under the Kenya Kwanza administration's affordable housing program. Analysis of new official data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics suggests President William Ruto and his officers may have overplayed the figures by a big margin. Yeah? So affordable housing in 2025, June, kasema 250,000. July, 320,000. August, 320,000. November, 428,000, meaning an average of about 300,000 jobs every month. Lakini je, hiyo ni ukweli? The Economic Survey Report 2026 says new jobs created in entire construction sector since 2023 is, guess what, 77,000. Lakini according to Housing PS Charles Singer anasema the program has created over 640,000 direct and indirect jobs since 2022. So you see, the KNBS is a government agency saying only 77,000 jobs were created since 2023. The PS of the same government says the jobs created were 640,000 over since 2022. But you know what we call semantics, hapa ndio shida iko, because some people may be saying jobs, but what kind of jobs? So according to the ministry, wanasema kuna jobs zile direct, kuna zile indirect. Direct jobs are those people going there kujenga pale. Lakini kuna indirect, wale wanafanya kazi hata kupiga mawe kwa kware, si hata hiyo ni kazi, wanahesabiwa pale. Hata kama unafanya kazi kwa hardware, si pia unauzia watu affordable housing kazi, steel and other material, hata hiyo inaongezwa pale. So who is lying? And that's the question. KNBS data says something different. It is a government agency, President William Ruto and his PS and CS say something different. That's a big story on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Other quick highlights on the front page. Tuju pia amefanya ile kitu. Secret recordings in Judge Tuju's EACC 16 million shilling bribery case. So former CS Raphael Tuju anasema kuna judge ako involved na masuala ya bribery na kuna recording mahali. That story is on page 2. That story about Governor Kang'ata coming out, anaitwa, I've seen online people are saying the epistles of Kang'ata. He's known to have written a letter back in 2021 to then President ikujua mapresident wengi pia inakuwa shida. President Uhuru Kenyatta. Yes. President Uhuru Kenyatta. And the president then was not very amused that this, back then Kang'ata was a Senate majority leader, that he could write a letter to him, ambe unaandikia nani barua? We meet so many times, mbona unaniandikia barua? So yesterday, the governor of Murang'a wrote another letter inaitwa the Epistle of Kang'ata. I don't know why people have given it that title. He's talked about so many things. Of course, the headline talks about him not running using the UDA ticket next year. But he talked about so many things that he feels this administration has failed on. And he picked on 3 things. He said education, health, and manufacturing. He said those 3 things, if this government, if this administration would focus on those 3 things, things would be very different. But because hamja focus na hizo, ndio maana si agree na nyinyi, na ndio maana sitatumia UDA hadi then. But akasema hapana, until then, I remain a loyal member of the UDA party. Until then. But ikifika wakati huo, mimi siko UDA. Anaenda wapi? That's a big question. A lot of speculation on where Irungu Kang'ata will head in as far as the political party will use for the elections come next year. Hapo tu kwa hiyo line hapo hiyo column, Ruto admits Mount Kenya headache in 2027. So he was in Murang'a yesterday at a church. The story is on page 8, and in his speech he seems to have agreed or to have come to the realization that yes, Mount Kenya is a bit slippery. He may not have said it directly, but he said, ninaelewa kuna shida hapa. And I'm trying to do everything I can to ensure that tuko upande moja na nyinyi. Na akasema musinitoe kwa roho zenu, lakini naelewa kuna shida na nimewachia Mungu. Amesema amewachia Mungu. So that debate, imagine the president is in Murang'a, anasema ni kugumu na amewachia Mungu, and then the same day the governor of that Murang'a county, who only appeared I think briefly to welcome the president, then left, he issues a statement saying I will not use the president's party next year. Enyewe ni kugumu. Weka mawe. Let's open the inside pages. Audit flags 30 billion shillings Eurobond cash breach. The Auditor General has revealed that the government's diversion of 30 billion Eurobond proceeds to cover for Treasury bond shortfalls violated the law. You can read that story on page 5 of the Daily Nation. Inside pages, Orange Party retreat opens in Mombasa amid a deepening rift. We're made to understand that even those people who are called or are deemed rebels, the Linda Mwananchi team, have also been invited for the retreat in Mombasa. Whether or not they'll show up to Jui. Meanwhile, Western region at crossroads as ODM influence weakens is another story on page 7. Back page. Former United manager Ferguson taken to hospital before United's victory. He was already at the stadium at the Old Trafford, lakini akapatikana na maumivu and he had to be rushed to hospital in an ambulance, and we wish him well. On matters World Athletics relays, steep learning curve for Team Kenya and Botswana, and we have a very interesting picture of one of Kenya's athletes there. Kenyan sprinter Millicent Ndoro competing in Athletics Kenya Track and Field Championships in January at Thika. So you can read more of that if you're interested in matters athletics. Gor Mahia meanwhile wako 9 points clear pale juu. Matter Sports on the back page of the Daily Nation. Tunaendelea sawasawa. Nataka tuangazie gazeti ingine kabla tufike kwa gazeti ya Taifa Leo, ili tusichanganyikiwe. Habari za Taifa Leo na zile za Daily Nation ni almost similar, na ni kama mambo inaenda gagna. Itabidi tuangalie Taifa Leo. Mlima na uachia Mungu. Nani amesema hivi? Ni Rais Ruto. Ruto akiri kukumbana na ugumu kurejesha ufuasi wa Mlima Kenya, ila anaamini kwa maombi atafaulu kufikia mwaka ujao 2027. Hapa gazeti la Taifa Leo anasema ni kilio. Rais Ruto asema japo ufuasi wa Mlima Kenya unateleza, Mungu atamrahisishia mambo kufika mwaka ujao. Akizungumza Murang'a jana kwa mara nyingine baada ya kuzuru huko juma lililotangulia, nilikwambia I told you he was in Murang'a for the second week running. Ni nini anaona huko? Rais alifokea wapinzani akisema wanalojua ni uzushi na ukabila tu, akiamini rekodi yake ya maendeleo itamwokoa uchaguzini mwaka ujao. Lakini amesema atawaachia Mungu wale wa jamaa wa kule upande huo wa Mlima Kenya. Pale chini Kang'ata kung'atuka UDA mwaka ujao. Ni gavana wa Murang'a alikokuwa Rais Ruto jana. Rais akisema ameachia mlima Mungu. Gavana wa Murang'a naye akasema yeye na UDA hawako pamoja kuanzia mwaka ujao. Kwingineko, pengo la usawa la tishia elimu ya CBE, yabainika shule za kiwango cha chini hazina vifaa muhimu tofauti na za kitaifa. Pale juu, kazi za nyumba za bei nafuu si nyingi sana, ripoti inasema. Uchunguzi wa baini idadi ya nafasi za ajira si nyingi alivyosema Rais Ruto. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 3 wa gazeti hili. Kwingineko, fahamu vipaji chekwa vya wanafunzi. Lakini pale chini kuna masuala ya EPL, Man City kufukuzia Arsenal EPL. Sasa nani wanafukuza nani? Si walikuwa juu ya meza, sasa wako chini wanatoka mbio. Nafurahia sana ile picha imetumika pale, wanakani kama wanajibizana, wanaulizana maswali. Kweli hii Arsenal tutaiweza? Kumbuka later on the show, Monday Blitz coming up at 8. Rocho atakuja hapa aseme kwani kuliendaje? Kwani kuliendaje hapo jana? Majabali hao wa Man City wahitajika kushinda Everton ugenini leo ili kujiweka pazuri kuwapiku Arsenal. Ndio hao ndio habari kuu pale nyuma. Man City ugani leo kufukuzia Arsenal. Hata wakishinda hiyo bado sisi tutakuwa mbele kileleni mwa ligi ya EPL. Gazeti la Taifa Leo. Tunazidi kuendelea na uchanganuzi wa magazeti hii leo. And as promised, we'll be linking up with my colleague Muthoni Brenda, who's on the streets of Nairobi. Remember, the biggest question we are asking is whether or not it is right for retired President Uhuru Kenyatta to still be actively involved in politics. He defends his right to do so. The Constitution says one thing. Many politicians, especially those allied to President William Ruto, think otherwise, and they say he shouldn't. What do you think? And Muthoni Brenda will be trying to get an answer from the streets of Nairobi on the same. Before we get to the Business Daily, and naona hiyo ni kama imeangaziwa sana, tuangazie gazeti zingine hapa, like the People Daily and the Star, which are usually also very interesting papers on a day like today. But sababu ya kiteknolojia ni kama inaleta shida pale. Uko na PD pale. Asante sana. Yes, ni maswala ya elimu, how Apex Court saved JSS, and that's Junior Secondary School term. There's an order that has been set aside to nullify employment of intern teachers days before studies resumed, meaning over 40,000 tutors will be in class, albeit briefly. So what happened was, intern teachers in junior JSS schools had their contracts extended for another year, despite them being given a promise that for the first year of the internship that was going to be okay, then that would confirm them after that 1 year. It did not happen. They were told to sign a further contract for the further 1 year. They were not very happy. Someone went to court and said that is illegal. And the court nullified that extension of the contract by 1 year, meaning it was going to affect everything. But now there's an order setting aside that decision. So the intern teachers still stand and the contract extensions still stand, meaning that the school term will not be affected. That is the basis of this story. Alafu kuna jamaa mmoja wa kanisa kule Siaya ama ni Kisumu. Alisema stop being a choir, echoing executive's agenda. This is Bishop. He was addressing MPs in Siaya. Amekasirika. Ni upande ule wa Nyanza tu mimi najua huko. Kwingineko, The Star has gone with something very different, and this is very interesting because The Star, even as we talk about politics and everything else elsewhere, The Star, for the first time, has invited us to consider what's happening in the finance bill of this year. And it says on the front page, 5% tax for mitumba in 2026 finance bill. We've not been talking about the finance bill. I think after 2024, watu walinyamaza sana maswala ya finance bill. Nakumbuka, finance bill, hatutaki finance bill, watu wakanyamaza sasa. Hata last year, watu walinyamazia. Leo, I think this is the first time we're being invited to consider the finance bill. Do we even know what is there? At least now, according to the Star, we know there's a 5% tax for mitumba in this year's finance bill. Importers to pay income tax before goods are released. But if you read the story on page 2 of the Star newspaper, there are other things. They've really gone slow on a lot of new taxation that would have been introduced. A lot of that they've gotten rid of. But this one, ya mitumba, swali kubwa pale. All right, so based on our big question today on whether or not President Uhuru Kenyatta is right in getting involved in active politics, and as promised, we have Muthoni Brenda on the streets. A very good morning to you, Muthoni. Where are you coming to us from this morning, and what are the people on the streets of Nairobi telling you?
A very good morning to you, Fred Indimuli. I'm coming to you live from Nairobi's Ngara area. Ndo hizo mashida za matatu. Tumefika. Nairobians are awake. Dereni shukishe. Nairobians are awake. Tuko hapa Victor's Cafe. Wameamka, mandazi imeiva, wanakunywa chai. And today the question of the day will be whether Uhuru Kenyatta is allowed, it's okay for him to remain in active politics. That is the headline on the Standard. Lakini for now, wacha tusikie maoni yao kuhusu magazeti hayo mengine. Nitaona kama nikiwaambia nitanunua chai, watakubali kuniongelesha. Habari yako, good morning.
Good morning.
Uko live on TV47. What are you having for breakfast? Hii ni nini?
Hii ni breakfast.
Unakula nini na nini? Naona ni kama ni mandazi.
Ni mandazi breakfast. Ni poa sana na naipenda.
Unaipenda sana. Hii ni kama how much hivi?
60 bob.
Ni 60 bob. Aya, sawa, tutakulipia, lakini kwanza nataka nisikie maoni yako kuhusu gazeti ya leo. So leo katika Business Daily inasema that budget ya President Ruto ya mwaka wa 2026, pesa mingi ameweka kwa development ya mabarabara, kujenga mahospitali. Je, unaona kwamba akiweza kutumia hiyo budget vizuri, mtaweza kumrudisha for a second term, ama maoni yako ni gani?
Okay, mi kwa maoni yangu ni okay, politics ni noma kidogo. Okay, last minute zo count So akiweza kutengeneza barabara, obvious atapata, kuna votes atapata.
Akiweza kutengeneza barabara mtampea votes.
Kuna votes atapata. Okay, si kwa wote lakini kuna votes atapata.
Nayo The Star inasema kwamba in that finance bill ya 2026 wameweka tax ya mtumba. Watu wa mtumba watakuwa wanalipishwa 5% tax. Maoni yako ni gani?
Kwa watu wa mtumba watakuwa wamefinyiliwa, sidhani watakubali juu wanategemea hiyo, wana live hand to mouth. Kenye kidogo wanapata ndo wanaishi nayo. So mkiongezea 5% inamaanisha wanaongezea wateja wenye wanauzia na wanauzia wateja na pesa kidogo. So kwao itakuwa shida.
Itakuwa shida kidogo. Alright, asante sana. Wacha tuulize huyu mwingine hapa ambaye ako karibu kumaliza chai yake na mandazi. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Hii breakfast yako ya leo ni pesa ngapi?
50 bob.
Ni 50 bob. Tutakulipia. Unaenda shughuli wapi?
Naenda kazi huko Westlands.
Ati unaenda wapi?
Kazi Westlands.
Unaenda kazi Westlands. Unafanya haso gani?
Nafanya mjengo.
Unafanya mjengo. Nataka kusikia maoni yako kuhusu gazeti za leo. Leo The Business Daily inasema kwamba President William Ruto amewekeza pesa mingi hii finance bill ya 2026 ya kutengeneza barabara na kutengeneza hospitali. Je, unaona kwamba akitumia hizo pesa kujenga barabara na hospitali mtamrudisha for a second term?
Unajua manifesto zake zilikuwa zinasema ajenge barabara, lakini sasa kuweka pesa mingi atakuwa ameumiza sisi wa Kenya ya kawaida. So hiyo inaweza affect politics zake, au akijitetea vizuri anaweza make it bado.
Akijitetea fiti anaweza make it bado. Alright. Na leo katika gazeti ya katika gazeti ya Taifa Leo inasema ati Rais Ruto ameachia mlima Mungu. Je, unaona kama watu wa mlima pia wao, kwa sababu jana alikuwa Murang'a akawa promise atajenga stadiums, akawa promise atajenga markets, akifulfill hizo development agenda, huenda pia wao watasema tutam?
Kusema tutam kwa watu wa mlima kuna uwezekano. Juu the deputy Kithuri professor ndiye atakuwa kama atamsaidia kwa hizo campaign, na ni yeye mtu wa mlima. Sasa ako na yeye anaweza make it, but still watu wa mlima bado hawamwamini.
Watu wa mlima bado hawamwamini. Na leo Business Daily inasema president wanataka kuongeza 5% tax kwa watu wa mtumba. Unakubaliana na hiyo maneno ama unaona watu wa mtumba watakuwa wanafinywa sana?
Hapo mimi naona watakuwa wamewafinya.
Watakuwa wamewafinya. All right, Fred Ndimuli, there you have it. Those are the feelings of Kenyans kulingana leo na the newspapers. Please stick around, nitakuwa bado nazunguka mitaani ndio nisikie their opinions on our question of the day on whether President Uhuru Kenyatta is allowed to continue in active politics. Sijui kama Buju, my camera person, anaweza kupan uone mandazi ambayo imeiva huku inafanana na ile ambayo tulikuwa tunakula Vihiga over the weekend. Back to you, Ndimuli.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for taking me back to Vihiga. Yes, we were in Vihiga for the Labor Day celebrations, and it was a wonderful time. Anyway, yes, and thank you for actually taking a look at the Business Daily, because I know I've run out of time. I may not take a look at that. Ruto betting on housing, roads, and in 4.8 trillion shilling election budget, which is before Parliament already. All right, so let's now take a look at the papers on the regional front. Twende Uganda na Tanzania tujue wanazungumzia nini. And maybe let's start with the one on the on the Daily Monitor. So the Daily Monitor has the trouble at UEDCL. Top 2 Ugandan electricity distribution companies bosses were at the weekend shown the exit amid a cocktail of high voltage, technical, operational and political issues. So stima imeleta shida. Na mjua hapa Kenya stima huwa tunatoa huko pia. That's a Daily Monitor. What about New Vision? Matters education given prominence on the front page of New Vision, quite typical of Uganda. Matters education. Arts teachers pay rise starting July. Hawashughulikia ati STEM sana wa arts. Tuvuke Bongo sasa, tuangazie gazeti la Mwananchi. Ni mjadala uteuzi wa munisi baraza la mawaziri. Huyu mama anakuwa kiongozi wa upinzani wa kwanza kuteuliwa kabla ya kuhama chama. NCCR yatoa msimamo, wadau wagusia mbinu za siasa na maridhiano. Unajua ile walisema wanaita, sijui ndio inaitwa stu kama inaitwa nini. Baada ya uchaguzi wa mwaka jana walisema watakuwa na what we call in Kenya broad based, including even opposition leaders. So wamemuorodhesha huyu ama kumjumuisha huyu kiongozi wa upinzani katika baraza la mawaziri. Anaitwa munisi. The Citizen. Why banks solid Q1 earnings are under scrutiny, matters finance. Na habari hiyo pia ya first opposition cabinet appointee prompts debate, and that's The Citizen. Turejea nyumbani tuangalie Karakacha sasa. Na Karakacha kwanza, the cartoon, this one is the one on the Daily Nation. Ni Daily Nation hii. Kuna boat pale ina sink na jamaa na drown anasema help kwa sababu kuna sharks zinakula watu, na hiyo ni cost of living. Yes, ni hapa Kenya. This cartoonist is talking about the cost of living and how people are drowning and sinking because of that. The one on the Standard talks about matters education, grade 10. Wameweka pale caricature ya mkokoteni na wale watu wako involved. Kuna teachers, kuna parents na mwanafunzi pale juu. Na mwalimu anasema the journey to Singapore starts here, kule grade 10. Kama wako na vitabu, wameweka vitabu vingi pale, lakini mimi naelewa ni kamba vitabu za grade 10 bado hazijafika. Sijali, washafungua shule. All right, the next one, The People Daily. Registration exercise ile voters ilisha, ile mass registration ilisha, but remember continuous voter registration continues and you can still register as a voter. Kuna mtu anasema pale, they say a dog barks louder at home, what went wrong? Rift Valley ni kama watu hawakuregister sawa sawa, IEBC walikuwa tu wanalala. Hakuna watu wanajitokeza. That's the People Daily. And finally, The Star. The Star ni hiyo debate ya retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and his continued involvement in active politics. So they have the president pale amewekewa microphone lakini imefunikwa. Asiongee. Sasa anauliza na wale wengine walikuwa kabla mimi. A caricature of the second and third presidents, Daniel Moi and Mwai Kibaki. Lakini kuna jamaa anamsukuma upande ingine. Ule jamaa wa DCP. And those are the dailies and the cartoons, both in Kenya and the region. Before we take a break, probably let's take a look at an update, a traffic update. Barabara zinakaa namna gani? All right, and as you can see, this is Thika Road and it's further north, kule Kahawa, Wendani and Githurai. You can see that long stretch of red as you head towards town from KU all the way mpaka past Githurai, almost to Kasarani. Hapo kama if at all you're coming from Ruiru area, kindly avoid this. You can use the bypass or something else because hapo utakaka. Hata service lane imeshikana kutoka Githurai kuendelea mbele hapo. Hiyo area imeshikana vibaya sana. Once you get to Kasarani, it's not looking so bad. Mambo inaendelea vizuri. Getting closer to Garden City Mall, a bit of traffic there at Garden City as well. Another long stretch of red at Garden City that goes all the way past Allsops. Hapo kuna shida. Thika Road yake huwa mnaishi maisha gani? Hii imekuwa ngumu sana. After that, also sio mbaya sana. Ukipita kidogo, it's green all the way towards the Pangani interchange. And the Pangani interchange today, wow, a relief there. I think it's because a lot of the traffic is being held up kule nyuma Thika Road, huko Githurai. Because once you get to the Mathari Mental Hospital, hapo imekuwa, it's a bit easier today. Even the Pangani interchange, not so bad. Tuangalie Jogoo Road. Jogoo Road kama kawaida, mwelekezi wangu ameenda upande mwingine Outer Ring Road. Hata Outer Ring Road I can see a lot of traffic areas around Utawala. That's the Eastern Bypass, Utawala, pale ile KQ headquarters getting busy, but after that heading towards Cabanas it's good. Outer Ring Road is green, both sides of the road. Mombasa Road too is looking good. A bit of traffic on Jogoo Road. I can see that stretch from Buruburu all the way to Mbotela. And even past that, there's a bit of yellow getting towards down. Maswala ya back to school imepunguka, so getting into town is not so bad this morning. Last week, tuliona a lot of traffic around Haile Selassie Avenue, but today it's looking good. So the other side of town, not bad at all. Traffic ni kawaida. And that's the traffic situation at about 34 minutes past 6. All right, after the break, a State of the Nation, we'll be discussing the big headlines. And remember, our big question today is retired President Uhuru Kenyatta justified in remaining in active politics? That's a big question. And I'll be introducing my panelists this morning in a short while. Remember, you can interact with us through our social media pages on X, TV47 Digital, on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube, where we're streaming live. It is TV47 Kenya. The hashtag to use is TV47 Breakfast. We'll be linking up with Modoni Brenda once again, but later on the show.
Sundays at 8:30 p.m.
Good morning.
You have my rent?
Leo jioni kama tutakuwa tumelipa rent, nauza hii simu yako.
Hamna pesa.
I need 3 G's to make my nails today.
Sasa hivi natuhusu aje?
Can I order now? Do you ship? Can I get blinking ones?
Mimi nilikuwa na trade. Nimewekelea kitele yangu. Kitele yangu na trade. Ikikunyuma.
Oh my God. He left me.
Nitumie ni live.
Uko nje kuna wifi.
Why? High five?
Wait, so what do we call this dish again?
I have no idea.
The cucumbers are there specifically for my beauty routine.
Tangu lini kero umeka kwa beauty product?
Na ameenda.
Tunafaa tukuwe na logo yetu. Like, si ni brand already.
We won't entertain divas.
No. I'm not dealing with a man child.
Amazing. Nishapenda hii energy.
Sundays at 8:30 p.m. on TV47. Saturday at 8:30 p.m.
My father used to tell me that our hotel is the home for travelers. I guess I forgot that. Recently, it's been more of a mirror of my own ambition. Ooh, yeah. We might fail. We will probably fail, but not for a lack of trying. So for the last time, and the first time, welcome to Connect In, the best experience in Eastern Central Africa and its environs.
Saturday at 8:30 p.m. on TV47. Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m.
This is a very serious place.
I see that.
Surely. Hey, nyumba.
This is the place.
Just for a few days.
Rule number 2.
Kwani Google inajua maisha yangu wewe?
That's my seat.
It's a chair. It was hers.
You're new here? Yes. You learned the rhythm.
This place is run by structure. Structure.
It is a system. Ni venye tu ni system haisikizi.
And what happens if something you haven't chosen enters your day?
I remove it.
That's not always going to be possible here.
Then you are going to have a problem.
Noted.
What are you planning? To escape from a resort?
This is not a resort, my friend. This is a storage.
Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. on TV47.
Nairobi, where the hustle never sleeps and neither do the scammers.
Link up, we are talking about something that's affecting all of us. We are talking trust.
We're diving into the campus life.
Stay fresh, stay safe.
Stay linked up.
My father used to tell me that our hotel is the home for travelers. I guess I forgot that. Recently, it's been more of a mirror of my own ambition. Ooh, yeah. We might fail. We will probably fail, but not for a lack of trying. So for the last time, and the first time, welcome to Connect In, the best experience in Eastern Central Africa and its environs.
This is a very serious place.
I see that.
Surely. Hey, nyumba.
This is the place.
Just for a few days.
Rule number 2.
Kwani Google inajua maisha yangu wewe?
That's my seat.
It's a chair. It was hers.
You're new here? Yes. You learned the rhythm.
This place is run by structure. Structure.
It is a system. Ni venye tu ni system haisikizi.
And what happens if something you haven't chosen enters your day?
I remove it.
That's not always going to be possible here.
Then you are going to have a problem.
Noted.
What are you planning? To escape from a resort?
This is not a resort, my friend. This is a storage.
You have to be very careful. Fake money can kill business.
Na leo mko rada yangu.
Small money, kapesa kadogo, big behavior.
I only have big notes.
Alikuwa anatafuta courage.
Yaani nafaje kutengeneza kachumbari na manyanya zinakaa hivi? Ona kiki ni kama kiwaru.
Hiyo inaitwa commitment to the lie. Amejicommit.
Ndio hiyo. Mpatie.
Unajua kama una mtu kitu, hata tu salamu ya kawaida inakaa kama
right. Good morning once again and welcome back. This is TV47 Breakfast and my name is Freddie Ndimuli. Remember, throughout this show, the hashtag to use is TV47 Breakfast. You can also use the hashtag StoryNear2. Also get to interact with us on all our social media pages, on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube, where we're streaming live, is TV47 Kenya, and on X TV47 Digital. All right. Question we're asking this morning is Uhuru Kenyatta justified in remaining in active politics? Yes. Is a retired president justified to remain in active politics? It is a subject of debate on the front pages today, and the Standard has this headline: Ruto's Bogeyman. Because enough of the president's allies are now keen to ensure that the retired president exits or quits active politics, according to their statements. Now, if I may read this one. With the Mount Kenya voting bloc seemingly defiant towards President Ruto's 2027 election, Ruto's point men have turned their anger and frustration on retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. In what is becoming the norm, the Ruto administration has made Uhuru its punching bag whenever it's under pressure from Kenyans to deliver on their promises in an attempt to deflect attention. I'll just leave it there and introduce my panelists now. Today we're privileged to have, beginning on my immediate left, Fwamba NC Fwamba, a political analyst. Good to have you in studio. Good morning to you. For the first time on this panel, Dr. Daniel Ole Kanchori, PhD, an advocate and management expert, is with us. Karibu sana. It's a pleasure to have you on TV47 Breakfast.
All pleasure is mine, and Jambo Kenya.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo joins us this morning. He's an advocate of the High Court. Wakili has been here before. Gentlemen, good morning. Karibuni. Quite a number of issues arise with this debate about whether the retired president should really be involved in active politics. We've had this debate over and over. Yeah, and people seem to agree that yes, the Constitution gives him some rights, but there are those who disagree completely. Is it really a constitutional issue anymore, or do we just say any siasa tu sasa?
I think it's a moral issue. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta had an opportunity to serve this country, a privileged opportunity to serve this country for 2 terms, and he left peacefully and retired. Therefore, he has political rights as espoused in Article 38 of the Constitution. However, it is so uncouth of him to meddle into the current politics, like in such a manner, like he wants to plant projects to run so that he can continue ruling through a proxy. That is not appropriate. And the other problem is when he deliberately interferes with the work of his successor. Previous presidents continued being mentioned in politics here and there, but we never heard of them getting directly involved, especially in terms of stage managing the succession debate or in terms of stage managing an election, the way he's trying to get involved.
How would the retired president stage manage an election?
If we look at Daniel Arap Moi, immediately after he retired, he just stayed at Kabarak. Those ones who wanted to visit him always visited him at his home. President Mwai Kibaki, I think the last time we heard of him in terms of politics was when he was introducing Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto and calling them the dynamic duo, you remember? That was the time. Then thereafter, we never heard of President Mwai Kibaki meddling in politics. I think President Uhuru Kenyatta had his opportunity, and he should also allow those ones who have come after him to lead or to organize the country in the best way that they can.
And it's interesting you've made that comparison between President Mwai Kibaki the late and Uhuru Kenyatta, because you say even Mwai Kibaki endorsed or introduced candidates.
He introduced and he disappeared.
Candidates that he felt people should vote for.
Yes.
Why is it wrong for Uhuru Kenyatta to do so?
He never, even the President
right now he's doing it as a retired president, not even as president.
President Mwai Kibaki never said it so explicitly. He just said that this will be a dynamic duo. Very different from what President Uhuru Kenyatta is trying to do. You know, there are situations whereby you can easily suspect that there was some kind of unfinished business. In fact, you can suspect that the objective of President Uhuru Kenyatta trying to push Right Honorable Raila Odinga to succeed him was not in good faith. It was part of the arrangements he's trying to choreograph right now, so that he can put their puppets that can lead in terms of face appearance, but in terms of real power, he'll be the one controlling that power.
Right. But where does this assumption come from?
So he's having hangovers of power.
Yes. Dr. Kanchori, because we observe even international politics. And if you look at the situation in the United States, President Obama, for example, is very actively involved when it comes to the Democratic Party campaigns, and is still active even in discussing politics. What is so wrong when it happens here? Or is this problem only unique to Uhuru Kenyatta?
My brother, you know, this Kenya Kwanza government is scared of everything. It was scared of the Gen Zs. It was scared of its own elected deputy president. Now they are scared of Kenyans, and they are even scared of a retired president. And it's so scary that the attack on retired President Uhuru Kenyatta is just a diversionary tactic by this government, because it has failed on its promises. I can say that confidently. And for them to go for Uhuru Kenyatta, who handed the power in broad daylight, Uhuru did all that he could do. Because if Uhuru had an issue with Ruto, one, he did not impeach Ruto. Well, Ruto has impeached his own deputy president. So if Uhuru really wanted to mess up with Ruto, he would not have come this far. So let Uhuru be. He's a Kenyan like anyone. We've seen, as you say, in the US, Obama came out and campaigned for a presidential candidate. Uhuru has just expressed his sentiments and opinion. And I was privileged to be with Rigathi Gachagua yesterday in Kajiado. And he said that Uhuru is retired, but his mind is not retired, which is true. We know that Uhuru is associated with the Jubilee party. So for him to express his opinion as a Kenyan, you know, apart from being a retired president, he's also a citizen of this. He's also a voter, and he has his political rights and choices. So I think the government should concentrate more. We have people who have died by floods yesterday. Almost, we saw the statistics is so far 18. We've seen the president fighting with numbers. And Uhuru Kenyatta is not Mwai Kibaki. Uhuru Kenyatta is not President Moi. Uhuru Kenyatta is Uhuru Kenyatta. And the attorney of the day say that Uhuru bado ni kijana. Haendi pahali. Maybe that's what is coming to our
It's good you mentioned that, Willie. And he warns Kenyans that having a retired president so young would definitely have a different experience than what we've seen. The other presidents were quite advanced in age by the time they were exiting office. But that does not disqualify, age or otherwise, constitutional rights, Wakili.
Yeah.
That the retired president is within his constitutional right to do what he should. What is the problem here? Is it simply because Uhuru Kenyatta does not directly support William Ruto?
I think that the problem, my friend, very simply put, is one, the government has not measured up to what it promised people to be doing. That's one. Two, it's always too scared of criticism. And that tells you that the combination of people at very high offices are not ready to be criticized. Any human being who is not ready or willing to be criticized has a unique syndrome bordering on inferiority. I mean, if you are a leader, you're a public figure, guys will throw mud, throw stones. Your work is to go back to what is the policy you are using to serve people. Now, in terms of Moi, Kibaki, Kenyatta, and then now Uhuru Kenyatta, you know, Jomo Kenyatta, Moi, then Kibaki, then now Uhuru Kenyatta. I think that they were all very busy, actually. Even if you properly analyze them, none of them went to complete retirement without saying something. Mm-hmm. The only issue was, for example, Mwai Kibaki his health was not as it should have been. And so after he retired, he was not in that good shape to be engaging in active politics. Mzee Moi told you every other time, he said, how can you tell me to shut up when the country is shaking in Swahili inatetemeka, and I can see it. So, and of course, Jomo Kenyatta passed on, you know, without having to retire. So you cannot make some comparisons just to brush off what citizens want. I remember William Ruto when he was deputy. You remember when he told us, it's all there in the clips, he said, Uhuru Kenyatta actually at one time did not want to contest in the second elections in 2017 after being told these elections were not good by David Murang'a. He was giving up. He said, I don't have to be in power for the country to run. So what is this now that makes you feel or imagine that he really wants to hold on to power? He wants to come. What is this? What exactly have you done to him? I mean, have you snatched part of what he should be having? Are you planning to snatch what he has? There is something, and you know, always these people in power, by the way, have some 50% extra information that we don't have. So there is something, some undercurrents which we don't understand. But when we come on TV, we're just analyzing, like he made a phone call, he was not even in Narok, and I think his cousin or brother, I think, you know, just took the phone and we heard the voice. And you say, oh, he's involved in, and that makes the ruling class feel extremely, you know, extremely jilted. So in my view, a retired president, I agree with Fwamba on that, he should be a gentleman and should try and act as statesman. He should not interfere on a daily, you know, activity, how government is organized. That I agree. And I have not seen Uhuru Kenyatta do that. He's not really going into...
Beyond the Jubilee Party, what has he done?
No, he's interested actually in building Jubilee Party. And if you look at the US, Obama is so keen about the Democratic Party that he gives opinion, his family gives opinion. If he's invited, he goes to speak in town halls. But in our country, Fred, I mean, you just see Uhuru passing in Kemadi Street or somewhere, even in Indakaine, and you just find people, you know, making a whole clip saying, oh, you Uhuru, oh, what? No, I think we should limit our anger.
Let's use a different example. In Tanzania, for example, I see retired President Jakaya Kikwete very much involved in CCM politics and even campaigning for the current president. Would it be different if Uhuru Kenyatta was to offer support to back William Ruto and campaign for him? Would it be different? Would they accuse him of involvement?
Actually, the biggest problem we are dealing with here is undermining. It's not criticism, because we are a democracy, and I think everybody is open to any kind of criticism or any kind of counsel or advice. You remember President Moi used to go to Mwai Kibaki's State House those years, and they could have discussions in closed-door meetings. So it is in order for him to get involved to that extent. But the level at which he's getting involved is quite suspect. I also wonder why we have...
What is suspect? Because so far we've just said he's involved in the Jubilee Party politics.
That from where I stand, I think there's some unfinished business that he's trying to push because he wants a proxy, someone he can manipulate as a president so that he meets those interests that he might have left as pending interests for his own objectives. Now, let's also get to the issue of double standards. President Uhuru Kenyatta himself, former President Uhuru Kenyatta himself, in 2013 was pushing so hard for Raila Odinga to retire from politics. Raila Odinga himself at that time, he had not even become president, so that he's pushed into retirement. But that was a very high-profile campaign on his side, that Raila Odinga had served as prime minister, and while Kibaki was retiring, he was also supposed to retire. The same kind of call continued in 2017, up to 2022, when he decided that for his own interest, like I mentioned before, he was supporting Raila Odinga. And based on his sentiments and his kind of conduct right now, it's very easy to tell that whatever he was doing in supporting Raila Odinga was not in good faith. It was on the basis of some of these objectives he's trying to push right now that are not so visible to the ordinary mwananchi. The ordinary citizen will be seeing this as ordinary politics, but in reality, there is a very high likelihood that there are certain interests
isn't that
that
the
are
reality?
so personal and so selfish and not in the interest of the country.
Isn't that the reality across the entire political class? Isn't that the reality across board that all politicians are doing it for certain interests?
That is true, and that's why we say that, because in Kenya, we have seen so much attached to leadership, that people pursue leadership for different objectives. There are those ones who want to lead, and then there are those ones who want material gain. You have seen very significant people who were paupers just a few years ago. Once they occupy positions of power, they accumulate a lot of wealth. So in this country we have had this appetite for materialism that people have insatiable appetite, that even if they leave power, they have those kinds of hangovers. They want to continue being involved for the sake of material benefits, and very little to do with wananchi.
All right. Yeah. Do you think there'll be any kind of impact? Many people talk about Uhuru Kenyatta. You may feel that he'll be one of the biggest factors in 2027. Do you really feel that Uhuru Kenyatta will be a huge factor?
In the Muli, you know, Uhuru Kenyatta is not in the Senate. Uhuru Kenyatta is not in the National Parliament. Uhuru Kenyatta does not sit in the cabinet. Uhuru does not head any police or military. So the government, this is just part of the government propaganda to divert attention. We are heading to an election, and we started from bottom up. We went to, now we are heading to Singapore. Surprisingly, the other day, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics gave the performance of the three presidents. Mwai Kibaki was 5.8, Uhuru Kenyatta 5.7, and Ruto was, I think, 4.8. And we've seen the president contradicting his government agency in terms of, and that was very absurd. So I think the discussion of the Aaron Cheriots of this world and the CSS who have no locus standi to even address Uhuru Kenyatta by all standards. This is just a diversionary attempt and tactic by the government, and they should just let Uhuru be. To answer your question, you know, Uhuru Kenyatta had warned us against electing this regime, and I think now is being to say is being now Kenyan have seen the reality, and every time Uhuru appears, even in a funeral, even talking to his own native language, he said, niliwaambia. Even the other day he told the clergy, please don't mislead our people again. Let them make, and I think...
Do you think that statement is the one that rattled?
And you see, he's just speaking the truth. You know, Uhuru Kenyatta sits in a board of Tana, whatever security of Central Africa there, Ghana, Mali, and all that. So he cannot be purporting to fixing other nations out there, not fixing our country. For him to give advice as a retired president, as a father of this nation, is not absurd. He's doing the right thing.
The same people criticizing the retired president are the same people who've been constantly drawing parallels between the two. Uhuru Kenyatta versus William Ruto. They always insist wakati wa Uhuru kulikuwa hivi na sasa kuko hivi. Don't you think that they were the same ones who've drawn the retired president into active discussions? Secondly, they said, and this was even when Uhuru Kenyatta was president, they still defeated his interests at the election. Why would they think that being a retired president, he would have more impact
I think,
in the next election?
If you have seen how thieves behave when they are together and they want to steal in town, they steal actually, and then again point the finger to you so that they dissuade you and distract the public from probably following them. And that's what we see today. I love it when my brother Fwamba says that he says double standards, you know. And then he talks about interests. It's a very important, in fact, topic. Can take a whole day to discuss. I think from a very layman point of view, Uhuru Kenyatta would be worried about anybody really stealing his property. Like, I'm using a very ordinary language so everyone can understand. Uhuru Kenyatta would be worried that either elements in this government want my land there, want my, structure there, want my stocks somewhere. He is not more selfish in the sense that he wants to go and grab some land somewhere and grab some hotel somewhere and grab some stocks somewhere, because either by dint of his family, they have made this money all along. So his fear could be, like you saw when he became president immediately, government functionaries attacked his son and he was wondering what's happening. So he is not more like, I must go out there for a certain selfish interest. more than, okay, if you are in government, leave me alone. I do my retirement. If you do not leave me alone, what am I supposed to do? You saw one time he was visited by the president, William Ruto, in Shaweri, Sindio. They went there, they shook hands. In fact, there was rumor that they've struck a deal. Now we are now seeing a combined front of William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta. But that was double standards. It was meant for the media. It was meant for just, you know, some color so that we can believe that William Ruto is some form of special strategist who goes there and shakes hands, and I don't know, but you could see that immediately after that, actually, Uhuru started to get back and now started actually now to comment what he sees is not right. So when you talk about double standards, and again, I hope you will get opportunity to analyze what you can see National Bureau of Standards is saying, that what the Kenya Kwanza administration is talking about, the housing project, is not what is in the books. So when we talk about double standards, and Fred, by the way, every Kenyan I've listened to, especially those who think like me, we have no personal grudge against the president, but the way you package your facts, policy, standards, truth, and the truth and the facts at the ground are so different that almost everybody gets embarrassed, and that is why you can see now a lot of people are dropping out of Kenya Kwanza train.
Yes.
So it's all about how the government is really pushing Uhuru Kenyatta.
And we'll discuss that issue about what's happening to UDA, especially in Mount Kenya region. But on the impact that imagined or otherwise that a retired president could have on an election, that's what I want to see, because this same administration defeated Uhuru Kenyatta and his interests at the last election. They've constantly compared this administration to his administration and rubbished his ability even as a politician, his ability even as a president. Why would they be so worried now? What has changed? Has he suddenly become more impactful than when he was president?
Because we are talking about issues around the interests. It's not easy to quantify the influence or the capacity of one individual in an election, because an election is a factor of, is factored by many aspects. On this issue of Uhuru Kenyatta, it's very clear that everybody that is talking about his involvement or lack of involvement is pushing some kind of political expediency. For example, the people who are purporting to defend him today are the ones who used to attack Uhuru Kenyatta left, right, and center when they were in positions of comfort, when they were in government at that time. It's even alleged that there's certain people who are involved in the raiding of Northland's land of Uhuru Kenyatta. They were not his friends. But today, because of the selfish pursuit of interests, they are purporting to defend him for very selfish reasons. Getting to your question, it is not possible to determine to what extent or what kind of influence someone will have. But this is what I have wished President Uhuru Kenyatta to do together with President William Ruto. When they met, people celebrated, and the reasons why they celebrated is because of nationhood. That if a former president is meeting the current president, then there's a likelihood that they're discussing issues that concern citizen welfare. That they are benchmarking, they're comparing notes on the basis of the best practices of governance, like some kind of counsel that you are advising the current president, this is what I did at this point, and this is what I think you should do. So instead of him shouting at the sitting president or undermining him, at their level, as a former president and the current president, they can sit together and advise each other, compare notes, reason together that I think we are doing this in this manner. So but
that kind of involvement is welcome.
It's much better than shouting and getting
and meddling. Do it outside.
Meddling and creating projects to undermine the current president.
I promised to get some feeling from the streets of Nairobi. Muthoni Brenda is on that. She's on the bit. On this same question, do you think that the retired president is justified in getting involved in active politics? Brenda, good morning once again. What are the people saying about this question?
Good morning once again, Fred Indimuli. We are coming live from Nairobi's Ngara area. Na hapa gumzo lishaanza, and today our question is former President Uhuru Kenyatta justified to remain in active politics? Hapa niko na wakaazi wa Ngara. Hawa wawili wameniambia wanakuanga manamba, ukipenda Kamagera, hapa area ya Ngara. Habari yako, good morning.
I'm very fine. I'm Simon Kamau Mwaura.
Angalia hapa kwa kamera.
Kamau Mwaura.
Unafanyanga haso gani hapa?
Kama gera.
Yes. Sawa sawa, leo swali yetu tunauliza, je, mstaafu Rais Uhuru Kenyatta akona haki ya kuremain in active politics ama anafaa staafu?
Kulingana Uhuru Kenyatta saa hii ametoka kwa mamlaka na saa hii akona kura yake. Anaweza sema kitu yoyote. Juu tunamjua na alituletea BBI, ilikuwa mzuri tukakataa. So as a Mountain Legion tunamsikizanga.
Kwa hivyo akona haki ya kukaa katika siasa hata kama amestaafu.
Kabisa, hata angetaka kuvai tena tungempatia tu, juu kazi yake tunajua iko fresh.
Kwa hivyo wale wanasema ya kwamba president akistaafu hafai kujihusisha na siasa, wewe hukubaliani na hiyo maneno?
Wote akina senator, huyu majority leader wa Senate waongea huku na huku. Tunajua Uhuru Kenyatta ni wetu na tunajua anajua kupanga siasa kwa mlima. Na tunataka sasa atupangie Gachagua, Sifuna, Otsotsi na mambo itakuwa mzuri.
Mambo itakuwa mzuri.
Kabisa.
Alright, asante sana kwa kukubali kutuongelesha. Wacha tuongee na rafiki yako hapa. Habari yako? Good morning.
Mzuri sana. My name is Joseph Kamakagona. Mimi nafanya kazi hapa Ngara. Kazi yangu ni kuweka magari hapa, kujaza, napata kitu. Na mimi huaso hivyo.
Wewe huaso hivyo. Kwa hivyo leo TV47 tunauliza, je, mstaafu Rais Uhuru Kenyatta akona haki ya kuremain in active politics ama anafaa aende nyumbani astaafu?
Anafaa, tunamhitaji sana. Uongozi wake ulitusaidia na hata saizi hata akasimama tunaweza mchagua kama president wetu. Mambo yake ilikuwa mzuri sana, aliendesha Kenya vizuri na sisi tunamhitaji akisimama. Tunaweza mvotia.
Kwa hivyo rais akistaafu haimaanishi safari yake ya siasa imekwamia hapo.
Haifai hivyo juu sasa bado yeye ni Mkenya na akona haki. Yes. So akisimama tunamunga mkono sisi bado.
Alright, asante sana. Hapa kuna mwingine hapa anakula chapo na chai. Sijui kama Buju na sijui kama atakubali kutuongelesha. Habari yako? Good morning.
Morning.
Angalia hapa kwa kamera, uko live on TV47. Ningetaka uniambie maoni yako kuhusu Rais mstaafu Uhuru Kenyatta bado kujihusisha na siasa. Anafaa aendelee ama anafaa staafu? Maoni yako ni gani?
Anafaa aondolewe. Anafaa aondolewe.
Anafaa aondolewe? Rais akistaafu aende nyumbani achane na siasa. Alright, asante sana. Wewe unafanyanga haso gani Wakenya wakiona hapa wakuja wa kusupport?
Mimi ni hustler bado.
Wewe ni hustler bado? Alright, asante sana. There you have it, Fred Indimuli. The conversation is live here in Nairobi's Ngara area and we are following the TV47 breakfast. Back to you in studio.
Thank you so much, my colleague Modoni Brenda, for trying to get the feeling on the street on the big question we are asking today. Is the retired President Uhuru Kenyatta justified in still getting involved in active politics? And that discussion we've had here with my panelists. And of course, it will continue even online because I want us to move to something else. Asanteni sana for your feeling, and you can continue interacting with that question on all our social media pages. Mlima na uachia Mungu ndio habari kuu kwa ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Taifa Leo. Nani anaachia nani Mungu? Ni Rais Ruto akiri kukumbana na ugumu kurejesha ufuasi wa Mlima Kenya, ila anaamini kwa maombi atafaulu kufikia mwaka ujao. Anasema anamwachia Mungu. That's what we want to discuss there. And of course, we are linking that to another headline that comes from the same Mount Kenya region. Yesterday, President William Ruto was in Murang'a. And incidentally, it's the same day that the governor of Murang'a, Irungu Kangata, came out and said that come next year, he will not be using the president's party to vie for any seat. Just looking at this, has it gotten this bad that President William Ruto is expressing this kind of frustration? Yes, and I'm told that we here at TV47 also covered that story. So let's get to watch the story covered here so that we can create the basis for the discussion.
Muriokuo. Onanie ndiriokuo.
For the second time in just 7 days, President William Ruto has returned to the Mount Kenya region, signaling the high stakes of his development agenda in the Mount Kenya backyard.
Onanie ndemukenu.
Sunday, he joined faithfuls at Africa Inland Church in Githumu, Murang'a County. And while the setting was spiritual, the message was purely developmental.
Hapa Murang'a, pesa ambayo tumetuma serikali kupitia SHA ni bilioni 2.2 billion shillings in the last 1 year.
The president further reinforced that the government is fully meeting its financial obligations to public schools through timely and sufficient capitation. It is in this address that President William Ruto sent a warning to school head teachers, emphasizing that capitation funds must be used in accordance with the established guidance.
Na kwa hivyo nawauliza wale wote stakeholders ya mashule yetu, tuweke masomo ya watoto wetu kipaumbele na tuhakikishe ya kwamba zile pesa zote tumetoa kama serikali zinatumika kwa njia ya sawasawa.
The president further confirmed that the total investment for sports infrastructure in Murang'a stands at 1.5 billion to 1.5 billion Kenyan shillings.
Tumewapatia bilioni 1.8 ya kujenga 2 stadiums. Stadia ya Mumbi pale Murang'a town in Murang'a town, alafu pia stadium ya Kagoigo ambayo iko hapa.
The head of state addressed his political future, framing his current development projects as the foundation for his re-election bid.
Nyinyi kama watu wa hapa Murang'a, si kila kiongozi anapimwa na ile kazi amefanya? Kuna mtu anapimiwa matusi? Kuna mtu anapimiwa mambo ya ukabila? Kuna mtu anapimiwa mambo ya chuki? Kila mtu apimiwe na ile kazi amefanya.
This visit wraps up a massive week for the county, following the launch of projects worth over 27 billion shillings, ranging from affordable housing projects to modern markets.
I'm very unhappy when I get this impression that I'm feigning, I'm playing a game. So I decided, fine, let me now spill over my cards on the table and say the truth. The truth is there are problems in our region of UDA party. And those problems are being caused by strategic errors done by the party in my region, strategic errors. So when you look at that trail, I can't believe that this is the same party that saw what happened in the year 2022, where political sympathy based on mistreatment by Jubilee Party made us partially win the election. And then we are doing the same tactics. Surely, I can't believe it.
They say in politics, nothing happens by coincidence. The president comes to the county, he's talking about his own political survival there. Then the governor, that same day, makes a statement that come next year, this party has made very many errors, I'm out.
Okay, Fred, yesterday, I saw TV47 hosted Honorable Moses Kuria, and he was projecting certain numbers that if you look at the government, President Ruto's side, if you have 26 counties, he's ahead by over 1 million compared to the united opposition being projected under 14 counties, where he placed 7 counties as battlegrounds. And it makes a lot of sense. Therefore, in terms of possibility of winning for President William Ruto, there's somehow a guarantee that he will win. Moses Kuria also pointed out that you cannot analyze the situation in the country based on the feeling of your village. That you don't just walk in the village and you say that the country has decided this way or that way. So I applauded the president for continuing to reach out to Mount Kenya and other regions in equal measure, as opposed to many other previous presidents who thought that whenever there is a resistance somewhere, you start discriminating other areas. The president has been very consistent. I think this is the second time he's going to Murang'a in just 2 months. And that's very encouraging. That is a uniting president, a unifying figure, who, despite having convincing numbers capable of him winning, he's still reaching out to the other places that are being misled by certain figures or certain individuals. Getting back to Irungu Kang'ata. Kang'ata, for those of us who are the University of Nairobi, in the Muli were there, and especially those of us who are in SONU leadership, we have something called Comrades Code. You understand, I succeeded Kang'ata as SONU vice chairman, and he's someone whose political career I've monitored so closely because he's been my friend. Kang'ata is a very calculative politician. He has never lost an election. Remember when he was suspended in the year 2000 at the university, he went and sought the position of councillor. And during his tenure as councillor, he became the person who was fighting for the people on the ground. That's what eventually earned him an election in 2013. He didn't run in 2007. We were with him around that time getting into the Kibaki campaigns. And he decided that he was not going to run, and he was instead going to support Ngenya Kariuki because he had looked at the projections on the ground. They were not favorable for him to win. So consistently he has been very calculative, and you saw what happened in 2022. He played certain cards. He was the majority whip, and when it got closer to the elections, he decided to side with President William Ruto. Something that I want people to look at, including Honorable Kang'ata, is that people need to be honest. Because the reality is that when President Ruto was very popular on the ground, remember going towards 2022, President William Ruto had created his own strength within Mount Kenya region, and he was the darling of the people. And that is why so many politicians rode on his shoulders to become elected. Therefore, it is hypocritical to try to move away from him instead of trying to strengthen the kind of support that the president is supposed to have on the ground. I saw him saying that he had concerns about the percentages the party is projecting, like having a conservative figure of 30%, while he wants it to have a figure of 60%. And I put it back to him and other people on the ground, that at the grassroots level, the leaders of UDA are the ones who are supposed to sell the party on the ground so that they project the numbers to the level of 60%. So I do not think there's some honesty in that kind of.
Do you link the two events, President William Ruto's visit to Murang'a and then the governor deciding to give his statement on the same day?
Of course, he has explained, and I think he was in the faction with the president earlier times of the day. Then he left and he made this statement. So he said that he felt that was being.
Isn't that very telling, Dr. Kanchori, that the president visits your county? You are still a member of his party, and you still say, until next year, I'll be very loyal and I'll remain in this party. But it is not the vehicle I'll use. Don't you feel that this is perhaps the most telling political statement we've seen in a long time?
Surprisingly, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the deputy president visited Murang'a, purportedly to supervise the ongoing over 519 kilometers of roads. It was in the news. And coming from Kajiado, I was surprised that such a major project is going on in one county. And when you hear Kang'ata, because he did not just talk about ditching UDA, he was also categorical about, you know, promises. President has said that you don't elect people based on matusi, but you also don't elect people based on empty promises. And you keep on promising this. You've heard him say that he said over $1 billion for construction of 2 stadiums. We want to be told whether that is in the budget, the timelines for that. With the less than 14 months to the next general election, I can tell you that is already a promise. By all, being once a legislator, you know the budget processes, the financial timelines. It's not possible to complete that. What the president should have done in Murang'a yesterday, he should have said that I have already completed A, B, C, D. And this one is on this percentage. We are going to start this one. But from what he's saying, is just saying we are not going to elect people based on matusi. And Kang'ata, as a politician, from the Maasai culture is only a stupid tick that will continue to stick on a cow that is dying. So, or a sinking ship, because that's basically what he said. And he said categorically yesterday that I'll be accompanying the president as long as his development tours. But if it is just for politics, I am not there because I'm not even going to vie under the UDA. So I don't want to be associated with that politics. That he was very clear on that. Yeah.
What do you make of this? Because that statement, we rarely get to see that kind of defiance from a member of the UDA party. Open defiance on the same day the president is in that county. And the president saying, amewachia Mungu, Mlima Kenya. Isn't this an indication that it's clearly slipping through his hands?
In terms of Kangata, I know him as a gentleman, nice by all levels. But now, talking politics and analyzing it here, those could be shenanigans. I mean, it could be an arrangement they have with Ruto, so that they can hoodwink people. Just the same thing Moses Kuria did the other day, and then now he comes back. If it is not that, then it is true that Kangata has realized, and you know, when we analyze, by the way, there is a difference, a distinct difference between the people of Shamakoko and the people of Rumruti. These two regions are different. The way you analyze Western Kenya politics, particularly, let's say, Western Province, former Western Province, and the way you analyze Nyeri or Murang'a politics is totally different. And the Central people have always, Mount Kenya people have told you that what they loathe the most is betrayal. So whether Kangata wants to hang on until the last minute, he will be thrown out as long as he's holding on to UDA. The reason is simple. In fact, Ruto is making, the president is making a very interesting statement that I know mutatuweka pamoja and then you will see what we have done. The first thing he did, which drove away the Mount Kenya people, is he betrayed them. That close to the chapter. So whether now he goes in to try and convince Kangata or anyone else, it will be him trying to salvage and get at least 1 or so million votes from that area. But they've gone. They've told him clearly. You can see it from the tremors whenever he visits there. You can see it. But he cannot, as a head of state, miss anybody. Mzee Moi used to go to Central Province and he had Kamodo, and Kamodo would, of course, mobilize a few people to go and clap for him. So you cannot lose completely because there are people who are selfish. They want to earn, they want to develop their career, which maybe is not there. But for people who have developed their careers like Irungu Kangata, for example, it is too much to want to stick on to Kenya Kwanza when already everyone is telling you, hapo usipotoka, we will consider you as a traitor. So I think that if it is not the shenanigans I said, and as I told you earlier here, these people in power see 50% more than we actually can see. So, and it's because of the behind the scenes machinations they do in the night, behind the, you know, away from the media, so that they can survive that way. Lastly, Fred, you know, Kenya Kwanza said once Rigathi Gachagua is impeached, he will completely go silent. So if that's a marking scheme, you have not managed to tame him even to stick in Nyeri and Mathira. He is all over Mount Kenya anyway, and he's also able to convince people in other regions, even though you call him a kingpin of Mount Kenya. Everyone can see that, yes, so he's a spokesperson for Mount Kenya now, but he has come to visit us, so, and he's calling us cousins. Oh, okay, so we can even partner with them. So so on that front of silencing the former deputy president, they have flatly failed. So if you were to say, then, are we going to vote you if what you're saying is not equal to what you're doing or what is in the air? Then of course people will not vote for him.
Many pundits have said or predicted that more of this will happen, the kind of action we see Kangata taking. That a lot of these leaders who are even with the president right now, as we get closer to the election, many, especially those elected within Mount Kenya and supporting the president, will jump ship. What we saw, and it's being called the pistols of Kangata now because he wrote another letter to Uhuru Kenyatta. He called out the president directly, telling him this is where you're failing. Education, health, manufacturing, he was clear about that. Do you think that more of this will happen?
Of course, it will happen, but not one-sided. as we move towards elections, people will be repositioning themselves. People will move from the opposition to the government side, and then there are those ones who will move from one side to the other. It is normal in politics, in the name of positioning and personal calculations.
Many are saying that there will be a proper exodus in the Mount Kenya region of leadership from UDA. Do you agree?
No, not necessarily the case. There are those ones who are staunch believers in President William Ruto, and they were working very well on the ground. And they understand that the president has very good objectives for the region. They understand that the narrative of betrayal is a very personal problem of one individual who was impeached. It is very wrong to take one personal problem and make it a community's problem. You realize that in this government, you look at the number of the CSs, the number of the PSs, the number of parastatal heads, chairmen of boards, the more than 50% or almost 50% are from Mount Kenya. So one person being removed through a constitutional process, an individual who recently just admitted before he got impeached that he was never known beyond the borders of Nyeri until he was discovered by President William Ruto. He admitted that himself. So him as an individual who has been removed through a constitutional process cannot be the personification of an entire community to say that the community was betrayed.
Are we talking about a situation that would have been? Because right now the president is already saying, ni kugumu. He's already talking about the problem.
There are many dynamics. If you look at previous elections, the people who vote for you in this election are not necessarily the same people who are going to vote for you in the next election. It happens. It's dynamics of politics. Remember, President Mike Kibaki in 2002 was voted by a certain segment of the electorate. Then in 2007, the configuration was different. So those things keep on happening, except in 2013 and 2017, because the alliance between President William Ruto and President Uhuru then was similar to what it was in the previous arrangement. Therefore, the current configuration is altered because a good number of Raila's former supporters are now supporting President William Ruto.
So the rally says that there could be an exodus in Mount Kenya region, just like we see Kangata coming out so publicly. Is something that could be a reality in the next few months?
It is not necessarily the case. There are those ones who will move in the name of their interests being aligned in a certain manner, and then there are those ones who will remain with President William Ruto.
What do you feel, Dr. Kanchori? Are we going to see more of this?
You see, it's only a fool who will not learn from history. And from what you say, Kangata was bold enough to write a letter to the then President Uhuru Kenyatta about the situation in Mount Kenya that time. I think he's been too lenient with Ruto. The way he's done is just rush to Nairobi and do a few press conferences. But during Uhuru Kenyatta, he gave a detailed statement on how things were going wrong. And I think for President Ruto, you saw he was in Bomet a few days ago. And you could see him frustrated that people in his region are not registering as voters. And you can see the headlines that now is leaving Mount Kenya to God. You see, maombi ni mzuri. Lakini prayer cannot fix incompetence, cannot fix poor planning, cannot fix when you see SHA and capitation. And you saw CS Wahome, the CS for lands, saying that Murang'a has been flagged as a political problematic area. And when you read our constitution, article, I think 138.4, about the 50+1 and the requirement for a president to garner 25% in 24 counties. And Murang'a is a voter-rich county. So the president is actually on his own. The president is a frustrated man politically, is a frustrated man development-wise, and is at the crossroads. And every wise politician will, because politics is about numbers. And you know, in Kenya, political parties are very critical. So Kangata has respectively declared his next political move. And you hear from his statement that he had several behind the tent discussion with the president. And it's like ni kama wamekubaliana. Whether they have a deal with him, but for him, as a politician, what we call political expedience, he has amepiga hesabu, 1 + 1, kaona hii kitu haikui.
Fred, you know, you asked about exodus, and it doesn't stop in Mount Kenya, by the way. There's going to be quite a bit in ODM. And so this exodus issue, no one can deny it. There will be huge exodus in Mount Kenya, but there's also now going to be a huge exodus in the Nyanza region, where the large crowd that is pro what they believe Raila Odinga stood for is actually going to walk away. In as much as now they have a meeting in Mombasa and whatnot, Sifuna has come in and has shown the people of Nyanza and Western Kenya that Raila stood for a certain philosophy, that these elites who his brother and other elites who are trying now to come in and take advantage of, you know, like sort of scavenging for leadership and developing their political career now, is going to lead a huge number of people you know, to walk out.
And yes, it's good you've introduced that, because that's the next topic about ODM and what is happening to that party. But I want us to finish up with this, what's happening in Mount Kenya, because this president's admission is something huge.
Yeah, but
and coming on the same day that a governor who has supported him all along is also saying, I'm not going with this vehicle.
In fact, the statement, that statement is cunning statement. You know, Kenya is hugely spiritual, you know, like they believe something is likely to happen. I mean, God is likely to do anything. That is a common belief across Kenya. So William Ruto is, for lack of a better word, cunning when it comes to language.
He knows very well that this kind of exodus in Mount Kenya is real. He did it to Uhuru Kenyatta.
When the president says, I leave it to God, that's actually to me a very sensitive statement. If you are a serious strategist in politics, you will consider that as a way of trying to woo the Mount Kenya, because these people believe in God a lot. So if you're not careful, that statement alone can actually scoop quite a number of votes, because he's seeking sympathy in a way, but at the same time saying, I have done my best, I will leave you to God. A lot of people will actually start
Dr. Kanchori appears to disagree with that.
You see, and you see, I think this is where they have a problem with Uhuru Kenyatta, because Uhuru Kenyatta looked at the clergy on the face and told them, you misled our people last time. And I think President Ruto has been exposed, because all his tactics are not working. For him to say, for a person to tell you, I leave it to God, means two things. That huyo mtu amefika mwisho. And secondly, he is trying, as he say, to persuade you.
Yeah, it's a sensitive
seeking mercy. He is seeking for mercy of the Kenyan people. So this is a president who ako kwa kona, and I think and this is the same card that he used. You know, he came, Madhani Arogo show, he came through the church. And you can see that over the weekends, all now the pulpits have been turned against this government. The same platforms he had. Now, you saw the bishop in, was it Kisumu?
Yeah.
Yesterday I was in one at PCA in Lotoktok, and they are speaking the truth, a very bitter truth about what is happening. So, I really sympathize with him.
So we shouldn't see this Bonafomba as an admission of failure by the president.
I'll get back to the numbers that Moses Kuria was sharing here yesterday. Those numbers tell it all, that the president's numbers towards victory are safe.
Including Mount Kenya?
For Mount Kenya, the projections by Moses Kuria was that if you assume that the president does not get even a single vote from Mount Kenya, he still has got 1 million votes more than the united opposition.
Based on what?
Based on the configurations of those counties that he said, the 14 counties.
You're quoting
I'm quoting Moses
Kuria. Okay.
And I strongly agree with his numbers. And he put counties like Vihiga, Kakamega, Bungoma, Trans Nzoia as battlegrounds. And that I fully agree with him. So the president reaching out to Mount Kenya is just the meeting his obligations, constitutional obligations as a unifying head of state, that he has to be everywhere in the country. And again, he's also looking for a landslide, so that, remember he said that this time round he wants to win with over 60%. And that's why he's continuing to pursue Mount Kenya to support him in addition to the votes that he already has. Because the projections by Moses Kuria show the president being 1 million votes already ahead of the united opposition, even if they came together, all of them.
But he did not provide The basis of his numbers. He did not.
No,
say where
he
the
gave,
numbers-
he gave a very comprehensive statistical output.
Yes.
They were together with your colleague Wakio here, and I followed the
He did
program.
not. The problem with such pronouncements. is that
And
unless you don't-
again, Moses Kuria has been authoritative in terms of these numbers. I've worked with Moses previously, and I know how he has been looking at these numbers.
Okay.
In the last election, in 2022, just 1 month to elections, Moses told me that William Ruto was going to defeat Raila Odinga. He told me that, and I disagreed with him. But eventually, when we met at Bomas, we were mourning, we were crying while they were celebrating.
Okay, so Moses Kuria as an authority, I don't know.
He was talking about tyranny of small numbers.
You are taking us back to...
He was talking about tyranny of small numbers, as
Fred,
opposed to the tyranny of numbers that was initially advanced by...
Okay, Famba. You know, the problem of going back to 2022, and now is already, you know, this is 7:36. We may not even have enough time to discuss that. It's an assumption that Raila Odinga was defeated fully. And there are so many pronouncements after that, including head of state himself, you know, saying we need to work together with you. Because, like I said, 50% of what we know actually is just this. So there is quite a lot. If we discuss that, I don't think we can exhaust it. And in terms of, I don't doubt, by the way, that a lot of Kenyans can come out and decide that we want to vote for William Ruto. Because Kenyan voters are very funny and interesting. You know, even when somebody slaps your face, I think you want to give him the other side and he slaps you. I am only afraid that the united opposition might actually fall for this kind of lie. Might say, oh, so I think there is a good number in Vihiga, it's a battleground in Nyanza, he will get this, Kisii, and then they believe that theory and go to sleep, and then they are defeated. Okay. But in the real politic and analyzing correctly, I doubt that the president, I didn't see the figures by Moses Kuria, I doubt that William Ruto today can win by 1 million votes. He won, quote unquote, by about 200,000 votes in 2022. I am very doubtful that he can actually...
1 million votes?
I doubt that landslide can happen.
Two things, my brother. One, Moses Kuria in himself is a frustrated man. See, from a CS, an advisor, to now just a spokesperson of the UDA party. I really sympathize with him because I worked closely with him when he was a CS for trade and the good work that he was doing. Look at the, what did they call the industrial parks. None has proceeded once he left the office. Number two, the united opposition has not even declared its candidature. The ODM, we no longer have a ODM. We have whatever is going to be there is a different ODM. So for them to try to do the analysis of the figures and all that, I think is premature for them to do that. What is, you can see that even the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is giving, and you know figures don't lie. And the government is contradicting its own agency. So for us to believe on the figures they are saying here and there, well, they are not even believing the fact. I think it's too premature. What is important and is true, that the mountain has gone. And the admission of the president to say, nimewachia Mungu, speaks a lot.
All right. Let's get some feedback on the question we've been asking, and it was about the continued involvement of retired President Uhuru Kenyatta in active politics. We do have this feedback from Facebook and other social media, and I can see one here. Uhuru is a Kenyan citizen. This is Boni Kundu, says Uhuru is a Kenyan citizen, pays taxes, and a voter in Kenya, but he is not a prisoner of the Kenya Kwanza and broad-based government. He has a right to give his opinion in Kenyan leadership, and he has a right to support a leader of his choice. Obama is a retired president of the United States, but he's very active in politics. He campaigned for Biden, Kamala, and now he's preparing for his next candidate. So hii mchezo ya mtu hapa Kenya akishindwa na cha kufanya anaanza vitisho, hapana. That's Boni Kundu. Gidi Mwangi says, nyani sijui aoni nani. Those cabinet secretaries and parliament speakers are doing politics. Yet the law prohibits them from doing so. Unlike UK, that's Uhuru Kenyatta, he has all justification to be in active politics. Wow, fair question there on other people who've been accused of politicking. Nelson Arun says he has every right to do so, but he will fail, as always. He has never succeeded in politics without someone holding his hand, so people shouldn't worry too much about the man from Mishaweri. Okay. Miralina Ayub says, arudi ndani ya ballot box, kwani iko nini? Sisi ndio Sifuna. And John Mwiti says, why not? Raila Odinga was retired prime minister. He was in active politics until his demise. He should not be intimidated. Mwas de Saint, our constitution gives you that democratic right, and as long as you live in Kenya and bad politics becomes a threat to your country, you must be politically active. Christine Crisodiambo, Crispin, Uhuru is retired but still has a constitutional right to his opinion on matters affecting Kenya, so the likes of Akina Cherargei, Wetangula and KK should allow us to breathe, please. Moses Kimeto, he has a right to speak about Kenyan politics. Do they want him to sit on the fence when things are going south? Na nyini wengi. Pastor Kelly Ambaka says, why not? It's unfortunate the easiest way to become a fool is to join government. Really? A bit harsh there. Adamson Muriki says, yes, Moi was more active than him and nobody complained about it. Frankie, political advisor suits him best. Okay. Mankolodo, he should be political advisor to both the government and the opposition. Really? Can he play that role? Timothy Baya, the question is, what Ruto accuses Uhuru of, he does it in excess. Well, Ruto has never been retired president. Which law bars retired presidents from speaking politics? And that's a question many are asking. Joseph Kipkoech Cheriot asks the same. Robin Ondieki, he should be neutral. He commands respect all over the country. Wow. Thank you so much for your feedback, especially those on Facebook. I can see a lot of the feedback was there on Facebook. This question is also there on Instagram and on Twitter, X. Continue and use the hashtag TV47 breakfast. I want us to wrap up our discussion this morning with what's happening to ODM. They are conducting a retreat in Mombasa currently, and the Deputy Secretary General, Catherine Omanyo, says they've also invited those considered rebels, mainly Linda Mwananchi. I don't know. There seems to be a change in the kind of rhetoric and the approach, especially by the Linda ground group within ODM. Because the feeling is that probably they were a bit too weak when it came to negotiating for the coalition with UDA. They seem now to be extending an olive branch to the other side. Do you think that is what is happening, Fuamba, within ODM?
You know, like we started this discussion, Kenyan politics is full of selfishness. Mm-hmm. So I think the current Linda ground team thinks that if they have the group of Sifuna together with them, they'll have a greater bargaining power. Mm-hmm. And some of them are even getting into the blackmailing mode. I saw one of the governors saying that if they are not given all the monies owed to them by the exchequer, they are not going to get into the negotiations with the UDA. You know, it's just blackmail here and there. But it is open out there that they are stronger if they are together and weaker if they are not together.
Do you feel that this is a new realization that they should go into this together? Is a realization that they have done it the wrong way, that probably UDA appears to be obviously the stronger person in this, or the stronger party in this partnership?
The most obvious thing is that UDA was accommodating ODM because ODM had been orphaned by the death of Right Honorable Raila Odinga. So it's some kind of an extension of an olive branch that the president invited them to, so that they work together.
Wamekuja kusaidiwa.
They are being assisted because Raila is no longer around. He was like ODM in person and in word. Therefore, without Raila, ODM is not that significantly tangible. Wow. That's why the Linda Mwananchi team is posing a challenge to the Uhuru team. Mm-hmm. And for them to attempt to get to where Raila left them, they have to join hands and work together. It would be better that way if they negotiate when they are one unit as opposed to being apart.
I want us to look at the headline, the way these papers have covered that story about ODM. The Standard thing just talks about the retreats or the wrangling within Siaya, but I think it's in the Daily Nation that a whole page had been reserved for this. Yes, page 7 of the Daily Nation. Orange Party retreat opens in Mombasa amid deepening rift. Meanwhile, Western region at crossroads as ODM influence weakens. It would appear, Dr. Kanchori, that we are coming across this word weak as we continue over and over discussing ODM. You said earlier that ODM is done. Do you think if at all they manage to reunite with the so-called rebels, that could change?
You know, I was once a member of the Orange Democratic Movement, an advisor to the Youth League. And ODM was Raila, and Raila was ODM. And barely, is it 6 months now? Since his demise, may his soul rest in peace. His own children have come to fight each other. You saw what happened in Kisumu the other day. Professor Tomo Ojienda came in with a group of goons, and now the Orengo is being chased away from a forum or a funeral, which is unprecedented. And I think, I don't want to accuse the government, but I think from my own political analysis, Ruto was behind the division in ODM. Because you remember in the funeral of Baba, he said that I'm not going to allow people from ODM to take this party to the opposition, and it's on record. He spoke as if he had a stake in ODM. And now we have a Linda Ground, we have a Linda Mwananchi, and I saw the late Prime Minister's sister saying, we want to have a faction of Linda Raila legacy. And I think ODM is in crossroads. Secondly, we have seen the NADCO report 3 years down the line. And you know, that was the basis for the arrangement of the broad-based government. And it was very clear: electoral reform, economic reforms, and what was the third one? Electoral, economy, and governance. And when they were commemorating the anniversary for that, they have now pushed. And we see now the president crying that amewachia watu Mungu, Bomet, his region is in cry. I don't think the issue of the NADCO now is in the agenda. And basically, you know, one of the reasons for the NADCO, they needed to have an office of the official opposition. There are very critical things that needed to be sorted out. With this crisis, and ODM wanting the political parties' funds from the government, now you even don't know which faction are you going to give. There are even now, you saw the newspaper, they are saying the instruments of ODM are safe with the trustees. Because now it's very serious that even you don't know who has what. And for them to, and I like the Sifuna team because they have gone the Kangata way. And they have now championed their own political direction. And I think whoever had crafted the division of ODM overdid his own assignment. Because now
he overperformed.
He overperformed. And for them even now to be inviting the Sifunas, I don't think we'll be putting our eyes on the television, see the reaction, because
if anyone will show up.
If anyone will show up.
Senator Ledamo Lekina was a member of ODM. Tweets here and says, "Dear ODM family, we need to stop fighting each other over distractions and start building real wealth. The people at the top aren't at war. They are too busy engineering division to keep us distracted while they profit of it." The people at the top. It would appear the people you're talking about and who outperform themselves. Do you really think that now is when ODM are realizing, probably we're being played? Someone has actually just cracked this different ways.
And I go back to my 50%, what we see is just what we see, but the rest is actually other shenanigans. And when you look at Oburu Odinga, by the way, I look at the ODM problem, number one, as a family problem first, before it became a party problem. It's a family problem because it's Raila, he's, you know, Oburu, a brother to Raila, who was given the mantle in a very suspicious manner. Note that they called for, you know, open meetings and then say, we want to elect so and so. And then there is always in families, Fred, undercurrents, you know, where you're doing it right, but I'm not happy with you anyway. So when Raila was around, he probably didn't have many people who actually were really admiring him. And one of that, I think, I could be wrong, But from how they have conducted this business, then Oburu was not really, you know, endorsing him from his heart. And also that, because if you see what Raila's children did immediately after Oburu took the seat and how he responded and then how it turned out to date, those are family issues, but I'm just trying to analyze that there are always undercurrents, how family management comes up, and once the leader of the family dies, then you start to see those things. Now, number two, there are political elites in Nyanza who never believed in Raila Odinga. Many of them. I'm not wrong to say probably Prof. Agenda was actually one of them. I'm just singling out because of what he did in Nyikal's, you know, father's burial. And there are many like those. In fact, there are so many, we know them, that they always were hanging on behind Raila, but they didn't believe in his philosophy. Now that he has gone, they've ganged up together. And you can see every single, you know, every good meaning supporter of ODM believes in Sifuna. Why? Because they believe Sifuna genuinely followed Raila Odinga and carries his spirit to date. So I think now saying, oh, now Sifuna, we invite you, I think already the horse has bolted. They cannot,
There's no going
it
back.
amounts to nothing. It really amounts to nothing, by the way, because now Sifuna has also realized, thanks to political patronage, I mean, from citizens, now he has realized I actually have numbers. I mean, why? At one time he said, what do I have to do with Oburu Odinga? Now, everybody, did you, Gachagua, was in a rally somewhere and he said, mimi na watu yangu yote. Then he named all the political, you know, the torchbearers.
Sifuna, yeah.
Then when he came to Sifuna, the crowd was standing up. I mean, that is the name they want to hear. So I think now they've realized that they are wasting their time. And that's why I said in Nyanza and Western region, there will be a huge exodus. William Ruto would easily lose by 2 million. Not win by the 2 million that was mentioned earlier.
And exactly the headline on page 7 about Western region at crossroads as ODM influence weakens.
And if we come to
3 minutes, 2 minutes each for your final words on this.
Fred, there is one point I'd like to clarify. I think when the president raised concern about the registration numbers in Bomet, he was talking about maximizing the potential. He was not complaining about them not meeting the target. If you look at the numbers released by IBC, and they were discussed here yesterday in this studio, the numbers within the president's strongholds of stretched, they went beyond 100% in terms of what was expected or what was targeted by IBC. So that should be not be confused to mean that he was complaining that the numbers did not reach where they needed to get. Then there's this issue of Linda Mwananchi. I think Sifuna has emerged as a good political leader. It's an advantage on his side, but I think he needs to be very calculative because ideologically, I do not see the Raila ideology meeting with Gachagua's ideology. So eventually, when it gets to the decision of the flag bearer for the opposition, there's serious concern that no one will want to identify with a coalition that is manipulated and run by Rigathi Gachagua, who does not believe in nationhood. He does not believe in the spirit of nationalism. He believes in tribalism. He believes in regionalism. So how will other people who do not come from his community be accommodated under that arrangement if he's the one who is calling the shots? And if he has a puppet as a presidential candidate or the person who is the flag bearer on that side? So that is why ultimately when the rubber meets the road, towards the end, when we get towards the elections, people will make decisions. Are those ones who will be in the opposition and those ones who will support President William Ruto. And there is a very high likelihood that people who believe in Raila Odinga's ideology, those who are in Oburu's group and those ones who are under Sifuna right now, will converge at some point and be behind President William Ruto. Anything outside that, it will mean that the opposition will have various presidential candidates, including Sifuna, Kalonzo, and many others, and that means they are more fragmented. So either way, there's no likelihood that the opposition will carry the day.
All right. A final comment, Dr. Kanchuri.
First, for him to accuse Gachagua of what he's saying, we saw in the recent by-election that DCP had a candidate in Narok, in Western Kenya, and in Nairobi. So, and actually Gachagua has taken over from Raila. Most important, when you saw Otsos being attacked in Kisumu, it was not just a coincidence. It was a calculated plan to divide the Nyanza people and the Western region. And you saw when the Linda, is it ground, the Sufuna movement, went to Kisumu, and they say that we, the people of Western, the Luya, cannot be divided with the Luo. And that's why I'm telling you, the person who was working the strategy to divide ODM, it was a government plan from the president's decision that time during Raila's funeral. I think now that has failed to work. When they failed to divide the Luo and the Luyas, that's the Western and the Nyanza, now that's why you see now they are warming up, and hence the retreating in Mombasa. Most important is that ODM is no longer there. And if we are going to have ODM, it's another ODM. You saw Orengo declaring himself the party leader. And Wanga is there. And for him to talk about Oburu and all that, I think Oburu should just resign or call for the NDC and let now the people of ODM work. But as we go forward, we are going to have a new political wing emerging from the division in ODM, and that will put the Kenya Kwanza government in problem, because now they are also singing the same song which the alternative united opposition is saying. They are all saying one term. So when you have one term on that side, one term on this side, and you saw Oscar Sudi lecturing his people in Uasin Gishu, we have over 2 million people from his tribe with voters, with IDs, but they have not registered as voters. That is a frustration that they have.
Wakili, wrap it up for us.
Yes, I think, Fred, Kenyans actually want change, and they want to break the status quo. They are trying their level best. There is a lot of resistance by especially the Kenya Kwanza functionaries and those who want to benefit by the status quo. But I think Kenyans have decided. When you look at, you know, when the Kenya Kwanza came to power, everybody thought like, I mean, we are all going to be wiped out. We are not going to survive under this president. Oh, he's too much. He's going to push everybody out. But sooner or later, the government has realized that when people have a resolve, there's nothing much you can do. In fact, you can con them here, lie to them here, call this a radio instead of a phone, and then some people believe. But now Kenyans have realized that the fear is gone and they want change. And the change they want is so that everybody can put money in their pockets, economic conditions can soften up so that everyone who works can see results, as opposed to having to tax everything and finally, you know, never bring it back in terms of services. So I think Kenyans are hopeful. And it's not really now about Kasongo or William Ruto as an individual. I think Kenyans want change, and that change will come at the ballot here.
All right. Very interesting headlines today. We've been discussing that with my panelists. Mlima na Wachia Mungu is one of the most interesting on the front page of Taifa Leo. And I think Kangata, Kungatuka UDA, another very interesting one, and we were talking about that as well. 5% tax for Mitumba in 2026 financial bill, another one, an invitation for you to look at the finance bill. Have you even considered the finance bill of 2026? It is out there, and something you need to know about. Ruto's Bogeyman, and the question we were asking today, is retired President Uhuru Kenyatta justified to still be in active politics? Asanteni sana my panelists this morning, Ishmael Nyaribo, wakili, Dr. Daniel Ole Kanchuri, who's an advocate and management expert, and Fwamba NC Fwamba, political analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time at TV47. After the break, we switch gears. Matter Sports, Manu alifanya ile kitu jana wakatandika Liverpool. Leo Manchester City wanakutana Everton, sijui kutana namna gani. Fred Arocho will be here, Katela Macy and their team on Monday Blitz. Do stand by for that. My name is Fred Indemule. Good morning.